And good morning. It is the 28th of April, 2016, if you're into linear time and have, an inclination to be mindful of things of that sort. In truth, it's infinity, and we are endless and spotless and shiny clean. How are you this morning, Barrett?
I'm good. As a testament to the holographic nature of time, I like to not experience my days linearly, but I use a random number generator and I decide which day of the month I'm going to experience next.
Oh,
So,
that's very clever. I like that. That way, sometimes you can anticipate your birthday, in such a way that you get all your presents first. That sounds like great fun.
it's true. It's true. It's a little confusing at times keeping it all straight, but I think it's worth it just to kind of mess with the idea of linearity.
Linearity. That almost sounds like a drunken hippie from the 60s. Linearity.
Oh wow. It sounds yeah, I'd like to meet her or him. I don't know.
I think it was Laverne and Shirley where we first got a very brief glimpse of linearity.
Oof, I missed that one.
Oh, sure. You didn't watch Laverne and Shirley when you were
I
growing
saw a
up?
little bit of it. Is this like a Len and Squiggy joke that you're making
Yeah. Yep.
here? Okay, I got you now.
That's what I like about my humor. It's so bleak that sometimes I don't even get it.
Well,
And that really is living in this material world. When you really look around, um, after you go through that process of, the cathartic experience over who's doing who and what our material world appears to be all about. And you just realize how batshit crazy this whole thing is. Uh, then, you arrive at that point where you can't believe in this world any longer. It simply is impossible to be real if God is real. I mean, the two are so much in opposition. God could never have created this. It is so obvious, and yet we still indulge ourselves in it. We are so addicted to it, and it is very bizarre.
yes, we have all these strange addictions. We think it might be to chocolate or alcohol or drugs or what have you, but really you're addicted to being an individual self. And that is the only real addiction you have. If you are able to shift out of that one addiction, then the rest of them all fall in line. And I think that ties into this idea that we're always going to the heart of the issue. We're always going to the very core. It looks like we have problems in our daily lives. It looks like we have things here that upset us or make us sour. Um, but no, it's just a cover. It's always a cover over the fear of God's love. And as we start to get more and more like, no, thank you. I don't want to be afraid of my truth. I don't want to be afraid of peace and joy. Um, and we start to experience that, and we get a deeper and broader taste of that truth that's within us all, even if we're often kind of misguided or distracted. And I think it fits perfectly into our topic for today, which is section 26 in the Manual for Teachers. Can God be reached directly? And Jesus starts this off right away. He says, God indeed can be reached directly, for there is no distance between him and his Son. His awareness is in everyone's memory, and his word is written on everyone's heart. Ah, that sounds pretty good.
Absolutely, it's obviously very very easy then if it's there latent within all of us.
Yeah, well, then he goes on to say, yet this awareness and this memory can arise across the threshold of recognition only where all barriers to truth have been removed. Okay, now it sounds like we have a little work then. And how many is this the case? He's basically telling us he knows most of us are not there yet. It's not a condemnation, just an observation. So that,
Exactly.
yeah, it becomes our work then to just keep acknowledging this and keep seeing how we're holding on to any scraps of fear, any thoughts of judgment or anger, and to keep saying, "Hey, no, that's not what I want to hold on to. Help me to let go of this."
And yeah, that's the thing about this amazing journey that we're on. You know, sometimes we're committed, other times we backslide for days or weeks or months. But it is simply a process of removing what is not actually there, and that's where it gets into the realm of being a conundrum. You know, Michelangelo, all of his sculpture, he didn't draw things out on a block of marble and then start hacking away at it. For him, he saw the result, and so then he systematically set out to remove everything that was uh, blocking his ability to realize that, to see that result in actuality. And that really is what our journey is we're not trying to become perfect. We already are perfect, and we have to focus ourselves on removing the illusions, the things that we believe in that allow us to imagine ourselves to be less than perfect.
Yeah, it's a great way to express it that we're not actually fixing or creating what we truly are. We're just undoing what we are not. So we're getting rid of the false, and then the true is already there. It's already perfect. It's already pure. We don't need to be redeemed in any way. We don't need to be fixed or be washed of of guilt that's real. We just need to let go of the guilt and the false ideas that are not real. And that's such good news. It reminds me of another story of a very large clay Buddha that was in a temple somewhere in the Far East. And after an earthquake that they had there, the clay Buddha developed a crack in it. And so at first the monks were distressed, like, "Oh no, how can we fix this?" And as they kind of went closer to investigate, they could see they could see something behind this crack or this small hole that had formed in the clay Buddha. And when they were able to shine a light in there, they actually saw gold. And what they eventually realized is that there was a whole gold statue of a Buddha that many centuries ago the temple was going to be overrun. And so the monks at the time, in preparation or in advance of this, so that the gold Buddha would not be looted, they had made a clay statue that covered, encased this entire gold Buddha. And we are like that too. We are the gold Buddha in truth. But we think that we have this clay. We think that we have this outer layer that's dull or that doesn't have the light. And that's the part that we just need to start acknowledging and then releasing and healing.
Exactly, and the primary goal of that journey, of that activity, is to once again reach God directly. That's what the whole point of our discussion is here: is arriving at a place where we realize that there was never a separation from God. There was only a dream or an illusion of that having been so. So it is kind of remarkably ironic, and yet at the same time, it seems to be such a huge journey that we appear to be on.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that that paragraph even keeps talking about this so beautifully. He just said, "In how many is this the case?" So how many have fully let go of that clay covering over their Buddha self? He says, "Here then is the role of God's teachers. They too have not attained the necessary understanding as yet, but they have joined with others. This is what sets them apart from the world. And it is this that enables others to leave the world with them. Alone they are nothing, but in their joining is the power of God. So this becomes our goal in our living our lives day to day, that we step into that truth that we are, and maybe we hold someone else's hand as we do it, not because there's really anyone else out there, but because we know everyone is worthy of heaven. So we wouldn't hold love back from anyone, because we know that love is what they are and love is what they're worthy of. So we just watch ourselves, and we watch as we're walking this path, as we start to wander off, and we catch ourselves and we bring ourselves back on track. And then we just keep noticing the times that the ego sneaks in, and then we just say, no, I want to hold the Holy Spirit's hand instead.
Exactly. In that second paragraph, they're talking about the teacher of teachers. And I think that it's good for people to have somebody that they can relate to in that level. Paramahansa Yogananda, I think, was probably my generation's big awakening teacher. I mean, literally thousands of people in my age range discovered the Self-Realization Fellowship and Yogananda's work.
Yeah.
And, I think that is one of the things, if you really do a supplication, if you really ask for that avatar's presence in your life, I think that it will show up. I think you will feel that presence. That's how the Christ consciousness will reveal itself to you. And so I think it is important that people recognize that it is good to have a patron saint. It is good to have a guardian angel, because in one sense or another, it is helping you reestablish that connection so that you do actually recognize that union with God.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big problems we all have is we think that we need to do this on our own. And that's obviously a very strong idea of separation. And by calling for help, whether it's Jesus, whether it's Holy Spirit, Buddha, or anyone else, angels, you're acknowledging that it's not just you. You're acknowledging that, okay, there's a greater support, there's a greater level of truth here that I can remember, I can ask to connect with. And it doesn't mean we're always going to get like aha moments like right away as soon as we ask. Sometimes we kind of reach out and we don't necessarily feel the biggest shift, but over time, and sometimes right away we do, and over time we always do. Over time, with the patient and persistent attitude, we will come to know that love that is within us, and those false clay layers over our true heart will fall away. So one of the things I tell a lot of people as they're working this path is that persistence is one of the most important characteristics, because as you named earlier, Chris, there are those days, weeks, months where it feels like we're backsliding. And one of the things I find so reassuring about Jesus's teaching here is that we can't judge our own progress. So those times where we feel like we're stuck in a black hole, we don't really know how to get out, we don't even know that might be the time where we're making our biggest progress on our spiritual path. It just might not feel very great as we're going through it. So it really encourages us to develop a state of non-judgment. There's a spiritual teacher, Regina Dawn Akers, and I've heard her say once or twice, basically like that she just assumes that everyone she meets is enlightened until they tell her otherwise. And it's a great way to go around the world, because it really puts you in the mental frame that everyone you meet is going to teach you something. And you're just almost curious, like, oh, what am I going to learn from this interaction? it's a very receptive and open mind frame, and I think it fits perfectly with what we're looking at here.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's that interesting kind of paradox around the idea of humility that comes as a result of grandeur rather than grandiosity. I think the truly humble person recognizes their magnificence and stands within that and realizes, that there is a reason to be humble because you're surrounded by those who have that same nature but don't always exhibit it. So humility is definitely a part of the journey. When we go down to section 4 here, it says, do not despair then because of limitations. Now, this one I really like. It says, it is your function to escape from them, but not to be without them. So a lot of times when we want to be, out there walking on water and raising up the dead, we would be failing to fill in that gap that we are here to fill in this process of the awakening on behalf of everybody else. It goes on to say, if you would be heard by those who suffer, you must speak their language. If you would be a savior, you must understand what needs to be escaped. Salvation is not theoretical. Behold the problem, ask for the answer, and then accept it when it comes. And that is, I would say, the most perfect encapsulation of what our obligation is in the journey that we're on.
Mm. Yeah. And it's expressed so beautifully and simply here. And it's not always easy to walk this walk. And that's why I think it's such a lifelong practice to use these ideas and to really work to embody them. Because we do have temptations. We do have things that seem to be more important than our dedication to the truth. And we just, in a sense, we have like a scale. We're always weighing things on a scale. We got truth and peace over here, and then, that problem I'm having with my dog. That dog problem feels heavier now. And we're continually weighing and deciding which one is more important. And obviously we need to address the issues that are confronting us and make decisions around what's happening in our life. But there's always two ways to do that. Are we doing it all with a sense of peace and stillness and joy in our heart? Even the things that are hard, we can have that sense of peace around them. Or are we doing it with anxiety, with frustration, with judgment, with bitterness? Those things are always hallmarks of the ego. So that mental choice is what we're talking about here, that we can always make that. Even as that challenge with Fido is going on, you can say, all right, where is the place of peace in this happening? How can I move forward with a sense of grace and ease? And we can even do that while we're going through hard emotions. We can be feeling these emotions without holding on to them, without making them a big deal. And this kind of gentle, patient, persistent attitude that we learn to adopt more and more becomes our way of life. And Jesus says early on in the text that miracles are habits. So this is something that we need to practice, and we need to keep practicing it. And just like any habit, we might have times where we're really kind of like latching onto it and doing it well. And then we might be like, oh yeah, I used to do that all the time and I haven't done that lately. We're like, okay, I need to bring that back to center stage so that I can lock back in. I can find that peace within me. So it's not wrong to kind of wander away from our practice, but we start to get that we feel better the more we do this forgiveness work, the more that we choose light. And then it becomes a question of, well, don't I want to feel better? We have to answer that question.
Exactly. And ultimately, I think the thing that we have to do is to practice acceptance. That's the key to this whole process. You are exactly placed where you are supposed to be. even though you may not believe that or may not embrace that idea. And everybody who is in your life is there because they are relevant to your growth as well as theirs. So when you judge people and say, "Oh, I hate this person. I'm going to get rid of them. I'm going to, dump them and shove them out of my life," then the person that's going to be hurt the most is you. Because everybody that is placed in our timeline is there as an example of something within us that needs to be looked at and embraced, brought into love, and transcended. So I think that's really the core of the whole thing, is to be in a state of comfort, even though your ego is going to find all these reasons to not be comfortable with the world that you're currently inhabiting.
Yeah. And I think kind of an idea that fits nicely along with that is this idea that is that we are like the puppet master. So in a sense, we are the ones that are holding the marionette, holding the puppets, and making them act out in that way. We're not actually one of the puppets on the stage. We think that this body, this self, this identity is what we are, but it's not. We are the mind, and we're even beyond the mind. But it's helpful to shift into this idea of being the mind that has generated this whole story, this whole puppet play that was playing out with the characters that we call ourselves and our people in our life. And as we shift into that mindset, well, could the puppeteer actually be victimized by what's happening in the play? Well, no. It would be silly, if the puppeteer actually felt hurt by what's happening between the two puppets. And we start to develop this sort of remove. There's this section called Above the Battleground in the text. We start to develop this perspective where we're watching what's happening. Even as we're going through our lives, we're kind of just stepping back a little bit. We still acknowledge everything we're going through, but it doesn't feel quite as intense. It's not like we're in the center of the storm. We're outside of the storm watching it go by. And that really helps me when I'm going through something in my life to remember, okay, I'm not that puppet that I call Barrett. I'm actually the mind that has created all of this.
Yes, and that's the constant challenge, is to stay at that elevated stage and be like Shakespeare in his observations. Shakespeare was very much an enlightened soul, and you can see that in all of his writings. But when he mumbled, "All the world's a stage," I think he really nailed it with such clarity. And people have been bandying that line from one of his plays around for decades or centuries. But the real thing is to recognize the truth of it and to step into that.
It's true. The truth is all around us, just waiting to be seen. But there has to be a willingness to see it. And I think that's what we're working on developing, is this desire and this willingness to know the truth. And the deeper we go with that, the more our experience changes, and it becomes less painful. It becomes less challenging.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Barrett, are you going to be going out and transforming the stage over the weekend? What events have you got coming up?
I am, yeah. I'm leading a couple of classes about the chakras. They're both here in the northern burbs of Chicago, and then I'm going to a cool party on the South Shore in Chicago Saturday night called Eagle's Nest Opening. Yeah, you can find all those listed at my website, which is barretthedin.com, and yeah, it's just barretthedeen.com, and it'd be great to connect with you there if any of this speaks to you. Yeah, all kinds of good things coming up.
Well, and I will be involved in a fundraiser for a family here in the south side of Chicago that is going through some stress. So a lot of interesting things going on. We will be gathering around the maypole on Sunday, I'm sure. So make sure you put some flowers in your hair and bring some ribbons to share with those who want to dance as we dance into the spring.
That feels good to me. I'm ready for more flowers to keep blooming.
There you go. Well, I'll talk to you in 1 week. Have a great week, Barrett.
Sounds good. You too, Chris.
Bye.